So I'm Fintan Halpenny. I go by Finto Haps online in most places. And I'm really thankful for Maro reaching out and asking for Radicle to speak. And since I live in Dublin, it was a quick hop over for me. I was a bit sick yesterday, but fortunately I caught the opening keynote, which resonated a lot with me. This is my first Ubuntu Summit and the first time I actually heard of Ubuntu Summit. And I wasn't sure how to frame the talk, but after hearing all the talks today, I think I picked the right title. Um, the the things that resonated with me yesterday were these concepts of rising tides and neutral platforms. Um, and so I'll get into the future home of open source, but first I kind of need to lay a bit of groundwork in my humble beginnings. I was lucky enough to kind of get my grips on open source and working or like contributing or communicating through open source. Early on, I was working in a company called LogoGrab, which did visual logo detection. And at the time, we were working with eBay, and they had a SDK that was hosted on GitHub, and I was able to like report a bug that I'd found in the SDK, which is, I don't know, it's really nice feeling to know that you're kind of like contributing to something bigger, right? Git really has been one of these huge tides, a tsunami, I suppose, for us to raise each other, building on open source. And they've been paying it forward, and we're all in their debt. Continuing on, I got to work in a company writing Haskell. I know I'm one of those rare unicorns. And at the time, we were also contributing to open source projects. So I really knew, I was like, this is something, there's something there. I want to keep working on this, doing this. And this is all on GitHub. It also played a huge part in this rising tide. There's a huge proliferation of open source projects that people have access to. Like not only just people who are technically savvy, but some people who know just enough to kind of get home servers running or maybe torrent clients running as well. And GitHub at the right time became the home of open source. And Microsoft came and acquired it. And I don't want to throw any shade towards the Microsoft people, especially since their talk this morning was really good and also like resonated a lot. But at the end of the day, Microsoft is a US-owned entity and complies with US law. And I remember when I started on the Radicle project, which I'll go into later, I remember seeing kind of like reports on Hacker News or posts about people abruptly getting banned. So here's one cherry-picked example that I found of someone based in Russia. Another person reporting on Hacker News who was based in Iran, and another based in Crimea. And I couldn't find the Twitter posts because I don't use Twitter and try and avoid it as much as possible. But there was one where a whole company's repositories kind of went dark on them because I believe they had an employee based in Iran or Syria, and the only way to reach out to GitHub was tweeting at GitHub support, which seems crazy to me. So I kind of like posed the question, assuming these people are just like innocent bystanders who want to contribute to open source, how come they can't rise the tides further? Also, we have to address the kind of AI elephant in the room. The GitHub CEO has stepped down, and GitHub is going under their AI organization. I can't quite remember what it was called. And this kind of like poses questions around ethics on training data. And as I was looking, Googling around, trying to understand how GitHub trained Copilot, there was a lot of like uncertainty or vagueness. I've included some links in the end of my slides. I can also post them on the discourse maybe after. But essentially they're GitHub discussions around like how is repository data being contributed towards training data, and some people questioning whether private repositories were actually being used or not. And there was no official statement from GitHub that I could find. And there was one instance of Copilot possibly mentioning that they use it is providing answers without any attribution. So, what are the alternatives? I'll take you through a whirlwind tour of some that I'm aware of. Please tell me if there's more that you know about after the talk. And I definitely am no expert on any or all of these platforms, but I'll give it a go anyways. So I feel like most people are very familiar with this cute little fox logo. It's GitLab, and it's such a close name to GitHub that I think it does ride on the tailwinds of GitHub sometimes. It's open core by design, so that means you can actually self-host it pretty easily, quotations, and you can tinker with it if you want as well. And then they build their enterprise solution on top of that core. And it's got the usual issues and pull requests and all of that jazz. Maybe one that people are less familiar with is SourceHut, which is actually harkening back to the email-based workflow. It essentially provides like a web page for your patches that you submit through email and your discussions through email again. I actually used this for a while as part of kind of collaboration research while we were writing one iteration of the Radicle protocol called Radicle Link, and I actually amazed at how much I liked it. When you're forced to sit and think and write, I think you become way more deliberate about your collaboration with your technical collaboration. And I guess it kind of like, failing forwards, but I kind of see why Git and Linux still use those email-based workflows. Another self-hosted option is Git. They say that you can self-host for free, and then they also provide an enterprise and cloud hosting solution, and they have compatibility with GitHub Actions, so kind of like tease you away a little bit. Getting into the more federated land of code forges, you might have noticed that two logos popped up here, Codeberg and ForgeJoe. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I'm not sure. So Codeberg is a nonprofit, community-led organization. I think it's kind of like a cooperative style where you can provide funding and you get a vote within their system. And ForgeJoe is the GitForge that is built under this entity. They also have a CI/CD project called Woodpecker, and something cool that they're working on or defining is the federated forge format, or F3. And essentially this is kind of like a data description of pull requests, users, issues. And the idea is that when you create a pull request, that data format can then be shifted to another federated forge, and you can easily move over if you start to not like how Forge Joe is going, or you see a better forge that is also federated. So easy exit, or easy entering, I suppose, as well, if you look at it the other way. Staying in the federated land, we've got Tangled with their cute little sheep logo. And they're using the app-proto protocol, which you might be familiar with if you use Blue Sky. This is the federated protocol that Blue Sky is built on top of. And Tangled have cleverly used these social network effects to build on top of that. They deploy forges to things that they call knots. And they're also staying on that bleeding edge by having an emphasis on Jiu-Jitsu support, if you're familiar with the Jiu-Jitsu version control system. And then we have Radicle. So welcome to the weird, wonderful world of Radicle. And we're taking it a step further by being a decentralized Git forge. So here I took a screenshot of my CLI and I ran radself. And this tells you my alias is Fintan Halpenny, as I mentioned earlier. And I have a DID. At the moment, the only DID that we support, and a DID, for anyone who is not aware, is a decentralized identifier. This one is stupid simple, and we picked it just to get off the ground running as quickly as possible. But essentially, it encodes ed25519 key. And what do we use that for? So that is for cryptographically verifying things on the Radicle network. So, for example, the network works like a bunch of nodes, peer-to-peer. These nodes gossip messages, so announcing that, hey, I'm a node on the network. Hey, I've got these Git references. And these are all cryptographically verified. So if anyone knows my key, then when they get a message from me or a message relayed by someone else from me, they can say, hey, was that Fintan? Yeah, it was. And when those refs are announced and you're interested in them, then it can start a Git fetch in the background. Where does that go? It goes into a local copy on your disk. So these are bare Git repositories. They're local first and offline first. So I often hop onto a plane, do my usual Git-based workflow, and then also can create a patch. I don't need to wait to land to create a patch. I don't need to wait to land to continue a discussion on a patch that I currently have locally. But when I do, it gets synced back up with the network. And interestingly, everyone has their own fork automatically. Essentially, these Git references are namespaced per identity. And in the image here, there's what we call a working copy, and that's your usual repository or like directory where you make your Git changes. And when you push, rather than going to some server, it'll go to your disk and then replicate out to the network. So here's a preview of our desktop GUI. And these are all the repositories that are on my disk, on my laptop at the moment. We also have issues built in. Here's the enormous amount of issues that we have on Heartwood, our Git repository that we're using for building the protocol. The list just goes on. And here it is in the desktop as well. Here are the patches in the same Git repository, and just a preview of the desktop as well. Now, something that's interesting about these are they're essentially an open format. They're what we call collaborative objects. So I think it was Scott mentioned ink and switch and CRDTs. Essentially, we kind of have CRDTs as well. Git kind of gives you an almost CRDT for free. Well, it gives you a CRDT delivery system due to the Git DAG. And each action or operation, it can be encoded into a commit. So when I'm creating a patch, basically I'm writing what the state of the head is of that patch, what base commit I was using for that, so essentially a range of commits, a title, a description, and then after that, someone else can come along, write a comment, write a review, and each of those are actions, and they collapse down to this view. Now, in theory, anyone can write a description of a collaborative object and start using it on the Radicle network. It's not well documented, so maybe we need some designers to come help us. But in theory, I think this is one of the unique selling points, is that we've figured out the peer-to-peer delivery system for you. Now you can write your favorite collaboration workflows and use them with your peers. Here's a quick screenshot of me syncing or fetching from the network for the Heartwood repository again. You can see that there's over 1,000 people seeding this repository. We kind of liken these to GitHub stars, except more intention. It's not just like a bookmark. It's saying, hey, I'm actually going to like seed this repository for you within the network. It's now reachable from me as well as the 1,201 other people. And this also gives you a kind of idea of what I was talking about with the namespaces. So each unique string there in the middle is another peer in the network. And these projects are also cryptographically secure. So we have what we call an identity document. You can see at the start there was the initial revision, which is always created when you initialize a Radicle project within a Git repository. And Cloudhead was the first and only delegate on this project. Essentially, a delegate can be equated to a maintainer of a project. And these are the kind of the key holders, the gatekeepers of sensitive things about the project. So how the project is titled, described, what's the default branch, what branches or tags are the honored versions or canonical versions, as we call them. And I'll get into that now, where essentially with each identity update, the delegates need to have a majority quorum of these decisions. So you can see here, I as a delegate was test running our new feature of these canonical references, which says essentially, I made a rule that says when there's a threshold of 2 of these delegates, so I or someone else, and someone else, push to the refs tags releases Git namespace, then a tag will be essentially made canonical. It can be cryptographically proved that this version of the tag is legit and was published by enough of the team. So that was a quick whirlwind tour of Radicle. I've got a QR code up for the website. If you go to radicle.xyz/work, we're actually hiring for either a protocol developer or a UX developer. And as always, we welcome contributions, and we hope that we could be the next home for open source. Thank you.